This is the Growth to Freedom Show. Now, here is your host, Dan Kuschell.
Welcome to growthtofreedom.com, the show that helps you transform your life, business, and relationships. I'm Dan Kuschell, and thanks for making us part of your day. We've got a great show today. And by the way, our show is presented by Genius Network, and all our guests made available through the Genius Network hotline. We'd love to connect with you. You can join us on Twitter at Dan_Kuschell. That's Dan_Kuschell. Or email us at info@growthtofreedom.com. That's info@growthtofreedom.com. So hope you're ready to dive into more clarity, confidence, and capabilities. I don't know if you're like me, but have you ever been in a place and time where you questioned your own personal talent, your own personal abilities? Well, today is about celebrating your genius. That's right. No matter where you are, where you've been, whatever your background, I'm here to tell you that there's a genius inside of you. And whether that's a book, whether that's being able to impact others or influence others or make a difference in others' lives, there's greatness and genius inside of you. Now, I'm going to reveal some things that I don't know that I ever have revealed to others. We have a very special guest that I'm honored to have on the show today. His name is Jimmy Harding, and he's an advisor, a consultant. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's a best-selling author of the book Social E-Commerce. He specializes in rapid breakthroughs. Would you like to get a rapid breakthrough? Well, he specializes in rapid business breakthrough. He focuses in 5 core areas. He focuses in mindset, marketing, management, model, and mentoring. So there's a lot we could talk about, and we're going to dive right into it. Jimmy, welcome to the show.
Dan, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. I love sharing the message and spreading it about entrepreneurship and rapid breakthroughs. I mean, I didn't get to this point. I didn't stumble to this point by just figuring this stuff out and knowing how to do it. It's a long road of, failures on my part and going through a lot of stumbling blocks, trials, and errors until I finally was able to put together a system to create rapid breakthroughs. And I didn't necessarily set out to start doing it for someone else. I started it because I needed a rapid breakthrough.
I understand that. In fact, as many of our listeners or people viewing our show, Jimmy, will find out, I know my background. I came from very humble beginnings and feel very fortunate for what's happened. And I don't know that I've ever admitted this publicly, but I feel in my heart of hearts I may be a classic overachiever. In many ways, I feel like a social misfit. I actually feel like I'm socially awkward. I mean, even today, I have a lot of trouble overall, but I've learned certain capability. I've learned certain traits, and what you're a master of is helping people get breakthroughs in a lot of areas of life and business, relationships, which is what Growth to Freedom is all about. So let's dive into it, if you will. Pretend to a degree that it's you and I having a conversation, and you're talking to this guy who might be questioning his own talent and ability, or this gal, maybe as she's watching or listening right now, it might feel something similar, like, I don't know what to do, where to go, what direction to be able to take. So let's start with something basic. Who is Jimmy Harding, and what does he do?
Okay. So Jimmy Harding, I really am just a lifelong entrepreneur. So, it's been something that's just been in my blood since I was a little kid. I mean, literally when I was like 8, 10 years old, I knew I created my own economy. I had it in my mindset. So I knew if I needed $10 for the weekend, I needed to go cut 2 lawns. So fast forward that through a bunch of, businesses, great successes, great failures, natural disasters that I was caught in. I'm just, a guy who believes that ultimately we create the life that we want. And what I know without a shadow of a doubt from having this experience, that it all starts in our mindset. So to give you an example of that, I was probably doing better than I had been up to that point in my business career with my construction company when and lifelong resident in New Orleans. You may hear the accent, but we got, devastated by Hurricane Katrina. And in my business, we built these really high-end custom homes, and, we had like 8 of them underwater, anywhere from 3 feet to 11 feet. And, we literally ended up getting wiped out by that. And, there was a funny thing that for a long time, a lot of things contributed to that, but I couldn't quite make the transition in moving out of that because I was attached to this story of loss. So everything in my mindset, it was about, how I lost this. It would come up in every conversation about this. And it wasn't in a way of poor me, poor me. It's just that, at some subconscious level, I found comfort in telling that story because, ultimately it was a good excuse and people would understand why I was in the position I was in.
Now, I'm going to cut you off there because I think what you just shared is one of those little hinges that swings a big door overall, right?
Yeah.
And, as you're watching right now, as you're listening right now, have you ever found yourself where you are attached to a story, whether it's true or not, real or imagined, but that story really becomes to a degree you, and it's a repetitive thing year after year after year after year. In other words, it creates patterns. It creates, ultimately, it creates limitations. So, Jimmy, from your story, it sounds like you've learned a lot from this, this experience. I mean, what most people would consider, number one, it wasn't your fault getting hit by Katrina. Number two, it was something that was out of your control, and yet you still were attached to the story and you had good reason to be. But what did you learn from it, and what can our viewers and listeners learn from that as well?
So what I learned was being attached from that story. Like, no matter how much I wanted to move forward, and no matter how much I wanted to go in a different direction, and no matter how much I said I was going to turn things around, and no matter how much I thought positive, the fact of the matter is, like, I had 1 foot in my future and 1 foot stuck in the past. And I was just not able to take any steps forward. But when I took a look at everything and I realized this, and it was really a breakthrough that came for me from listening to a Tony Robbins tape. And I knew through and through to my core, I got chills that this was me, and I was stuck and I couldn't move forward. So at that very moment, I didn't know how it was going to happen, but I didn't let the tyranny of how stop me. But I knew I was going to create something bigger. I knew that I was capable of more than I had let myself become by staying attached to the story of pain. And I just created myself a new vision of what I had for the future. And literally from that moment, you could basically say I took my right foot out of a shackle and started moving it forward. So then I was able to start taking baby steps and moving forward. And the whole essence and the whole core of that shift and the things I've been able to achieve since then, still additional struggles I've been able to overcome have been creating a more compelling future for myself, and to stop even thinking about the past and just realizing, like, wow, what a gift it is to enable me to see the reason I got caught in this and the reason I got stuck for so long. It probably would have been something that no one could tell me, but I experienced that, and I heard a third party say that, and I felt it at my core, and I knew things had to change. And the moment I let go of that story and said, you know what, if that's my story, I'm just going to create a new story, a new vision that's even more powerful for myself, and bam, I started moving forward.
And speaking of moving forward, Jimmy, I mean, as you're watching right now, as you're listening right now, I mean, have you ever felt, what do you do when you feel like you've got 1 foot, going in the right direction, you got 1 foot stuck in the sand? What do you do? Well, many times, I don't know if you can relate to this, but I've gone, I don't know what to do. So I just do the best I can. And what Jimmy is sharing here is, I think, one of the most insightful tips. I mean, Tony Robbins, like you, Jimmy, I mean, you and I've got a chance to meet each other through Genius Network. I know Tony Robbins is a big part of our event this year coming up. And he talks about three things, right? And I know you're an avid student of his. What is it? State, it's story, and strategy, right? So you clear the state, you clear the story, you clear the strategy, you get the greater clarity in the results. And so what you're talking about is how you create the new story, how you create the new opportunity is by actually shifting this new vision of a compelling future. Isn't that right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And another thing that I didn't understand, and I see it so clearly today of what Tony's even talking about in that state, it's like the state that I bring to the day. Am I high energy? Am I low energy? Because, think about it. If you have a problem and you're sitting down at your desk and it's like, man, how am I going to break through this? How am I going to get, how am I going to replace this employee? How am I going to grow this division? And you're sitting there and you're all worried, then you're going to be a lot more stressed, and your story about what you have to do is going to be a lot less compelling than if you go in there like, hey, I'm up to bat, bottom of the ninth, this is what I do, and I'm going to kick butt.
And speaking of kicking butt, folks, when we come back, we're going to dive into this with Jimmy Harding a whole lot more. We're going to talk about how you can develop a better strategy for a bigger, more compelling future. Are you ready for your next breakthrough? Well, we're going to reveal that and a whole lot more. And also, while we're on the break, I want you to apply some of the advice that Jimmy's getting and do this little check-in right now. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being greatest, what would you say your energy is right now? I mean, how you do anything is how you do everything. And what you're experiencing right now is likely a true reflection of how you do most things, isn't it, Jimmy?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So evaluate your energy. When we come back with Jimmy Harding, we're going to talk about your next business breakthrough. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to GrowthToFreedom.com, the show that helps you transform your life, business, and relationships. We're talking, just to summarize the first segment, we've been talking with Jimmy Harding, who's an expert. He's an advisor, business growth specialist. He teaches you how to get a rapid business breakthroughs, in fact. He's also the best-selling author of Social E-Commerce. And in our first segment, we've been talking about mindset. We've been talking about how Jimmy, has dealt with failure, right? And how it's easy to go into that state of, a story built around that failure, and we carry that with us and have an attachment to us. In fact, he talked about it. He says, you have one foot in the future and one in the past, and it's extremely hard to get to where you want to go. And so we left off at that point. We're going to talk about how to build a compelling future. So Jimmy, what I'd love to do is have you share, and by the way, as you're watching or listening right now, we've got a very special gift package that we're going to be sharing with you here near the end of the show, and I've got a very special invitation from Jimmy Harding directly that you will not want to miss, so stay tuned for that. So Jimmy, as you dealt with this, some of these failures, and of course, you've had a massive amount of success running multiple companies. I mean, at last count, I think from what I've heard, you've helped you and your lucky clients account for somewhere near over $20 million in results in the last 24 months or less overall. So that's some incredible success. But at the same time, you sit here saying, I've dealt with failure too. So thinking about some of those failures and thinking about what you just hit on about creating a more compelling future, knowing what you know now, what would you tell your younger self, your younger Jimmy Harding, about dealing with, I guess, holding on to the past and holding on to this old story and turning it into the new, more compelling story?
The biggest thing that that I would tell myself is not to waste the time doing it, because it was an absolute waste of time. And it actually, what I didn't understand at the time is it took away from that vision I had created as a young man. So, I always had this vision of myself being in business, just like, when I was an athlete on the playground, I had a vision of myself, playing collegiate sports. So I always had a vision of what I was going to do. and being stuck in that story completely took me out of having that vision for myself. So, what I would do differently today is I would not allow myself to go into that state where I could even create a story that, is so, so devastating for my personal future and my personal vision and my compelling vision. And so, the tool that I bring to the table today to never allow myself to go into that. Now, I don't say that, everything goes perfectly every day, because I still have challenges, but it's the mindset, it's the energy, it's the way I show up in life, the way I show up in business. It allows me to not even have the possibility to create that story of struggle in my mind anymore, because I know that even back then, I was 2 millimeters away.
Yep.
It's like the airplane that's going from San Diego to New York City. The wind keeps pushing it off track, but if you just keep adjusting 2 millimeters, you're going to get back on track, and you're going to end up landing where you're supposed to be. So most of the time when I'm struggling to find a solution, and I think I'm so far off, what I have to remind myself is that I'm only a 2 millimeter shift away from changing everything.
Oh, that's so profound. I mean, I think of it from a golf perspective, right? Similarly, that at the point of contact, if you're just a millimeter or 2 millimeters off at the point of contact, I mean, that can send your ball off 40 yards, to the left, right, short, long, etc., which is about how my golf game goes, by the way, in case you're wondering, Jimmy, overall. And so, as you talk about that story in your mind overall and, really getting a hold of this with your vision, what tips or suggestions? I don't know if there's anybody else watching or listening go, I've tried that vision thing before and it hasn't worked, right? Or how do you go about creating a compelling vision in a short, simple way? What's your blueprint? What's your formula with all the clients you've worked with for being able to develop a vision that you could share a few of those steps and strategies right here with our viewers and listeners?
Absolutely. So, when I first started, hearing about like how to do this vision and everything, it was like it sounded kind of woo-woo and funny to me, and I'm just wasn't really into that type of stuff. But I had a guy explain it to me one time, and he's like, this vision that you want to create, it's really just what you want. So you could name it a vision, you could name it something else, but to simplify things, and what I do with my clients, I just look at it as bridging the gap, okay? Here's where I'm at right now. Here's where I want to be in X amount of time. Now, what are the things that I have to do to move from point A to point B? So, although vision may be more complicated and even bigger than that, I think where you can really simplify, because that's one of the things that I really help my clients do is simplify things. I can see, to an extent, some complex issues and problems and simplify them. And I look at it just like, when I was building a building project, is I could look at a set of blueprints and see all these moving parts, but just pull out the core things that needed to happen for us to get that whole set of prints complete. So,
and what's interesting that you say that, Jimmy, is, I know you say that with, just a lot of elegance about simplifying. And, what's amazing, I think, about business today is the ones who are going to have the greatest impact in the world at all kinds of levels, business or otherwise, socially, mentally, physically, socially, spiritually, emotionally, and financially, are those who do simplify. And real genius is seeing what others don't see, right? Or the 100 things that others don't see, one thing. And it sounds like to me what you've really grasped at is really taking big, broad ideas and really narrowing them down. So essentially what you're saying, if I hear you correctly, is that a vision is just really getting clear on what you want and also bridging the gap of where you are now to where you want to go. Is that true?
Absolutely. And you said that, you said that so perfectly, because to me, really, the vision all starts with clarity.
Clarity is the answer. And as you're watching right now, by the way, I challenged you when we went to that first break, on a scale of 1 to 10, where was your energy level? And if you weren't a 10, what was missing for you, right? What was missing? Now, in order to get you from where you are to where you want to go, what is going to have to happen? Well, I'm going to share this with you. We're going to go to break here in just a moment. But when we come back, Jimmy is going to talk about how to create that compelling vision, clarity, how to create more clarity in your life, create more confidence. We're also going to talk about some strategies for that next rapid business breakthrough. I'm going to ask him some of the questions that you'd want to have him answer for you if you were sitting here right now. So we'll cover that and a whole lot.
Number FINRA SIPC and a registered investment advisor. MLIC and MSI are MetLife companies.
Welcome back to GrowthToFreedom.com, the show that helps you transform your life, business, and relationships. Again, a show presented by Genius Network. All of our guests presented through the Genius Network hotline. To summarize our previous segments, we've had Jimmy Harding, best-selling author, business growth, rapid business growth expert, talking about how you can get your next business breakthrough. He's been talking about success. He's been talking about failure. My favorite quote from today is, you can have one foot in the future and one in the past, and you can't move forward to where you really want to go. We've been talking about having a vision, how to be able to really determine what you want, and how it's all about simplicity and clarity overall. And by the way, I promised you a free gift package, compliments of Growth to Freedom as well as Jimmy Harding, and I'd like to share that with you right now, because would you like to have more influence, bigger impact, bigger reach, make a bigger difference? Would you like to start putting some of the principles we're talking about to be the best you can be mentally, physically, socially, emotionally, financially? Well, we've got a gift package for you valued at $197, and it's yours free. That's right, it's free. You'll get our 2 free books, our best-selling book, A Champion in the Making, Waken the Champion Within Your Life, Business, and Relationships, Walking with the Wise, our audio program, our video program, How to Hire Better, Better Strategy, Better Focus. It's yours. When you pick up the phone right now and call while supplies last, you can call our office at 602-246-3389. That's 602-246-3389, or visit our site at growthtofreedom.com/gift. That's growthtofreedom.com/gift. Get it now while supplies last. So, Jimmy, it's a pleasure to have you back. I mean, we've been talking about genius and you seeing what others don't see, or the 100 things that others don't see, the one thing, and talking about clarity. So I have a question for you. I want to put you on the spot here. Knowing what you know now, if you were starting today in today's economy and with today's disruption, just today's innovation, right? What would you do as it relates to your business to get the best start possible to set yourself up for the best success, and as it translates to our viewers and our listeners today?
That's so easy, but then again, it's simple as elegant, right? So one of the, the number one thing I would do today, starting over, that I did, I didn't do in the past, is I would get absolutely clear on the market I would want to serve. So, so many times we think we can serve everybody across a whole, we think that, our product or service is perfect for everyone. It will help everyone. And while that may be true, I think if you could really figure out who your ideal client is and figure it out in a way where you could help people who are already having a degree of success, but you want to alleviate some of the stressors that they have and show them a simpler and better way to take things to the next level. You see, what I found out, and what I didn't always adhere to, because I just really have a big heart. I think of myself as, the creator of value, and I just want it to help everyone. And sometimes, you just can't multiply zeros. So I had to really take a look at who I was serving, how I could help them, and how I could help them achieve their vision and mission better with my help than they could alone. And just that one distinction really changes everything, from your business to their business, the way the marketplace sees you and everything else. And there's still other ways to help people that still have zeros, but they don't have to be the ideal client.
Oh, that's so profound, Jimmy. So let me see if I've got this right. Number one, identify the market you serve. Get very clear on that. Number two, who is your ideal client? In other words, determine, their characteristics, their qualities, potentially the marketplace, where are they hanging out? Number three, figure out what it is you eliminate. In other words, I think you defined it as eliminate the stressors overall, because I think I heard this years ago. I forget where. Maybe it was Joe Polish, right, who we've both done a lot of work with. He says, if you have 1,000 choices, you don't have any, right? Especially today with all the clutter that we're faced with overall. And what you're saying is you can't multiply zero. So there are a lot of other ways to serve all types of clients, but not your ideal client, because if you're focused on somebody that truly isn't your ideal client, maybe you can't serve best because they can't afford your services. They can't afford your products. One of the best strategies that most businesses could make is to raise their prices. So we're going to get into this controversial topic. We're going to also get into, I want to ask Jimmy about how do you identify your ideal client? What are some of the markets to be looking at to serve as well? That and a whole lot more coming up right after this. Welcome back to growthtofreedom.com, the show that helps you transform your life, business, and relationships. Let's summarize the previous 3 segments of the show. I feel like we've gotten a seminar in a show here today, Jimmy. I have to tell you. I've got 4.5 pages of notes. We've been talking about mindset. We've been talking about checking in with your energy. We've been talking about, if you've got Jimmy's quote, if you've got 1 foot in the future and 1 in the past, you can never get to where you want to go. We've been talking about vision. We've been talking about the 3 states from Tony Robbins: strategy, state, and story, and how one serves you to move to your bigger future and one holds you back and limits you. Which do you prefer? Which do you deserve? I believe there's a seed of greatness inside of you, a seed of potential, a champion in there. There's a story to impact others if you'll take the time to learn how to get it out there. We've been talking about where we left off in the last segment. We're talking about how to get your personal business breakthrough. Number 1, identify the market to serve. Number 2, who is your ideal client and getting clear. And number 3, eliminating the stress of others and identifying what that stress is. We have a guest in the show today. His name is Aaron, and he provides software solutions. And one of the things that they do, they eliminate the stress of complexity for time management. And they offer this as a tool to help other businesses to be able to do that. What's the name of the company, Aaron? Appointment Plus. So there you go. We got Appointment Plus built into the show today. So Jimmy, as you're with, and by the way, if you're just joining us, Jimmy Harding is an expert advisor, a rapid business growth expert. He's the best-selling author of Social E-commerce. And I have a question, Jimmy. How the heck did you fall in to doing what it is that you do? Did you just wake up and bump your head because of Hurricane Katrina and decide, okay, business growth is what I'm meant to do? Or what was that? Tell us about it.
So what it really boils down to is I learned how to do what I do out of sheer necessity. So I was a guy who never believed in marketing. I thought word of mouth and doing a good job would serve me for the rest of my life. And it did for a very long time. Hurricane Katrina comes, it totally changes the game, okay? And in the first 18 months after it, we were just like busier than we had ever been. We were really fortunate and blessed to help 88 families recover and get back in their home. And I was watching all of these new contractors and companies come from out of town, and I see them doing all of this advertising and marketing, and to myself I'm laughing like, why are these fools wasting all of their money? And 18 months later, they had all the business, and I couldn't buy business.
Wow. And so you turned this adversity into something big.
Yes. But originally, my thought was never to do what I was doing. It was like, oh, my God, I need to learn how to do what they did so I can do this for my own business. So, being the, just being the guy that I am, I just, I didn't even have any money to invest, but I enrolled in Tony Robbins' $10,000 seminar, and I learned some stuff from Jay Abraham and Chet Holmes and Tony Robbins, and then I started getting in, with the internet guys and learning them, and what I found out is that I had such a bigger passion for helping people overcome their business problems than I did for building people their dream home, because I saw the impact that it had on my business initially, then the impact it had on the people I started to help. And I'm like, man, I have to do this full time. And it was just like a complete transformation, but it was something I never planned. It's just something that happened, So what do you call that? Like, the unintended consequences?
The accidental apprentice. I don't know.
Yeah, so it's just, I've always been one that believed heavily in not reinventing the wheel and learning from people who were already doing it. And I literally just said, I'm going to this seminar. I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know anything, but I'm doing this.
So speaking of that, I mean, there's obviously a lot of wisdom that you have. I mean, what is it that you do that you feel has allowed you to really develop success models, success practices that has impacted so many successful businesses over the last couple years?
It may sound funny, and it may not sound elegant. Again, it's really simple. And what it is, it's the level of caring that I have for people. And when I make a commitment to help someone with something, then I'm all in. So I'm not in the marketplace really to sell my services. I'm in the marketplace to get people results. So I go the extra mile and do whatever I need to do to get those results. And from approaching things in that type of mindset, like I told you earlier, I really believe that my true purpose is to be a creator of value. I own that domain name, creator of value.
Now, speaking of that, because I think that in itself is, really a real gift. So what to you is being a creator of value? What does that mean?
To me, it just means that whatever situation that I come into, whether it's a conversation or answering questions, or if it's a piece of marketing that I put out for myself or my clients, it means that whoever came in contact with me or that content is in a better place because they came into contact with it. So, if you would think about most marketing, it's really an interruption, and it's someone trying to pull you down their agenda. Very few people really and truly just create value. So obviously we need to bring people down a line to become a buyer, but if you can do that in a way where you really create value for that person, and whether they become a client or not, they are better off, and you taught them some stuff in your marketing pieces.
And or got them connected to people, and or collaborated with them, and or made yourself available as a sounding board. I mean, there's so many different ways to add value, create value, extend value, and you are a real tribute to that overall. And what pops up for me is, as you look at your success, as you look at where things are going and project in the next year, 2 years, 3, I mean, things are, of course, expanding, innovating, disrupting at levels faster today than ever before. And we're at one of the most exciting times in history. And there's some people who are going to be prepared for that, and they can ride it like a surfboard, if you will, and catch the wave. And then others are going to get crushed by that wave. So what skills, what capabilities, Jimmy, would you recommend for our listeners, for our viewers, that they really look to hone in on or acquire themselves or in their companies to be the best version of themselves that they can be?
I think without a doubt that without without getting into any really technical stuff, which if you don't have the capability, that's the wrong place to play. I think more than anything, if people would arm themselves and really educate themselves about education-based marketing. So if you can find some type of book, some things, you have some great books, A Champion's Vision and stuff like that, and get your mindset ready and realize, like you said, that if we don't anticipate the future, we're going to get crushed by it. So we have to be in that state, the story, and the strategy. And the strategy really is only the smaller piece of it, 20% maybe. So if we can learn the strategy of how to do educational-based marketing, and we bring the right state to life, and we show up every single day, we can't go wrong, because there are so many opportunities. It's just that we have to see them. And if everyone, there's no special tool, but if you get clarity, say, okay, what do I want? The stuff we talked about, bridge the gap, and just really say, okay, here's where I'm at, here's where I want to be, and here's how I'm going to get there. And you have some clarity. While so many people are overwhelmed, and that's the exact thing that is taking away the clarity, the overwhelm. So, unplug yourself from some stuff and get where you can really focus and concentrate on doing just a couple of things and doing them well, rather than being connected all the time and doing 20 different things. You just cannot have the same level of impact and the same level of focus and everything that you need to be able to anticipate and see all of the opportunities coming down the line, because the opportunities are there for everyone. And what we have to do is prepare ourselves for it. So if we prepare ourselves by learning the game of educational marketing, by learning that skill, we're already in a better place. Because here's the thing, is what it's going to come down to in every situation is who is prepared. And I use this elementary thing all the time, okay? And I tell people, okay, so if the person that made the biggest impact on your life, and you had the opportunity to go and shake their hand, but they were only going to be at a certain place for 10 minutes, and you had to leave immediately and get there, and it takes basically 7 minutes to get there. So you would have 3 minutes to meet them and do whatever you would do. This could be something that changed your life or something. The person who is going to get there is the person who didn't come home with their gas tank on empty. Because what's going to happen to you is, by not being prepared and having fuel in your engine, you're going to have to stop to refuel, and you're going to miss that opportunity.
That is profound. Profound. I mean, Joe Polish met Richard Branson in a similar fashion because he was prepared. And it's also about, obviously you'd want to have your cell phone charged up today because you could go do a little research so you could walk into the conversation looking at what they were interested in. It's so, I mean, we could spend hours on all of this, Jimmy. I want to make sure to give you credit where credit is due. I want to, have people know where they can reach you. But, something I just want to kind of review as you're watching or listening right now is, don't get hung up on technical things. Another way you could look at this is, don't fall in love with tactics, fall in love with principle-based. And what Jimmy just shared, an elegant gold nugget, is the strategy of education-based marketing is so important, as well as getting prepared. And it's underestimated, it's undervalued, it's underutilized. And the best way you can become resourceful is to become a resource and show up prepared on time. I mean, there's so much great wisdom here, Jimmy. So what I'd love to have you share, we've only got like 2 minutes here to wrap up. So I guess in 30 seconds or so, why don't you share with people how they can reach you? I know you've got a mastermind program that I'm a big fan of. I've referred people to you. I encourage you, if you're looking for someone that can help you get more business breakthroughs, Jimmy's got a mastermind group. So Jimmy, how can people reach you to work with you directly?
Oh, great. Thank you. The best way to get me is, jimmyharding.com. and I have all of my information on there. And, you know, the mastermind program Dan was speaking of, it's Game Changer Mastermind. So if you would go to GameChangerMastermind.com, it tells you everything about it, who's it for, who it's not for, what comes with it. But it's basically a virtual mastermind, and the same strategies that I was talking about today that I use every day and that I use monthly. And, you know, I share those in the group, and other people in the group are sharing things. So it's just a great entrepreneurial community.
I agree, Jimmy, and I encourage you, go to jimmyharding.com or gamechangermastermind.com. I'm a big fan. I actually had one of my good friends. I gifted him and paid for a membership to attend Jimmy's program. Why? Because I believe in what Jimmy's doing. And as you're watching, listening right now, I know that Jimmy, I feel smarter by having you on the show. So I hope we're going to have you on in another future segment, buddy. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. It would be an honor.
Awesome. Well, folks, there you have it. I mean, time flies when you're having fun. Seize the day. Make the most of this moment. You deserve it. You're a champion. You're a winner. We'll see you next week. Make it a great day.